Well, let's begin this hour in the international scene, where U.S. officials have downplayed claims that Hamas is violating the ceasefire deal with Israel by not returning all the bodies of the dead hostages. The officials say plans are underway to demilitarize the Strip and build a new transitional government, but the dispute over the return of dead hostages has threatened the ceasefire deal and led Israel to reduce promised aid supplies to Gaza. Forensic tests have established that the two bodies handed over on Wednesday were hostages, but 19 others remain unaccounted for. Hamas says it is committed to fulfilling the terms of the ceasefire deal with Israel, but needs help to recover bodies from the rubble of Gaza. Correspondents say it was understood that finding some of the bodies would be difficult in the ruins of the Strip, but that's little consolation for Israeli families waiting to bury their dead.
As we embrace the families of the hostages, both those who have already come home and those we will bring back, we are determined to bring every last one of them home. Our wonderful sons and daughters who gave their lives in the war effort are the foundational pillars of the rebirth of Israel. Jews, Druze, Christians, Muslims, Bedouins, Circassians, and also members of other communities. They acted shoulder to shoulder to achieve all the objectives of the war, and we will indeed achieve all the objectives of the war. One thing is clear today: anyone who raises his hand against us already knows that he will pay a very heavy price for his aggression.
Well, for more on this, I'm now joined from Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt by Arise News correspondent Adesua Giwa Osage. Hello, Adesua. Thank you for joining News Night.
Hello, Adesua. Thank you for having me.
Okay. What's the latest on ground as you monitor developments in the Strip of Gaza?
Well, the latest I have to tell you is that the primary concern right now for international observers, as well as all the international powers that have been part of this agreement, is the lack of aid going into Gaza. Now, UN spokesman has said that there is no aid at all getting into Gaza City and northern Gaza. As part of the agreement, 600 aid trucks were supposed to get into Gaza every single day. But as we are right now, Israel has not opened the Rafah crossing, and they have no plans to open it up anytime soon to aid. Now, there's a single crossing right now that's open going into Gaza, but that crossing is allowing about 300 trucks enter, and some of these trucks are commercial. They have goods for sale. So apart from the fact that aid is not getting into Gaza, the restriction of these trucks is also causing the price of food to skyrocket in Gaza at this point in time. On the other hand, Donald Trump has said in response to the videos showing Hamas killing people in Gaza that if they do not behave themselves, or if they do not stick to the terms of the ceasefire, that President Trump says that they will have to kill Hamas. They would have to go in there. On the other end, if we're looking at ceasefires in general that actually have to do with Israel, Israel had a ceasefire with Lebanon in November of last year. They have dropped bombs on Lebanon today, with the Lebanese Health Ministry saying that 6 people were injured in southern Lebanon from these bombs. So there is a lot going on today in the Middle East.
Indeed. We're also learning how Israel's exploding robots are still terrorizing Gaza neighborhoods, just like you've said. Adesua, I mean, what's the threat of all of this to the ceasefire? How does it endanger the ceasefire? Does it at all?
You know, I think it endangers the ceasefire depending on what we think that ceasefire actually is. I said earlier that an 11-year-old boy was actually killed in occupied West Bank today by Israeli forces, and it's 969 people have been killed in the occupied West Bank since this war began on the 7th of October 2023. But a lot of people are saying, is this a ceasefire deal? Is this a peace deal? Or is this a return to normalcy of what was occurring in Gaza before the 7th of October 2023, which is an occupied force and a Palestinian Palestinians dying. We've reported, of course, that some Palestinians have died. We've now reported on the exchange of bodies. That's the sticking point right now, is that there is a belief on the Israeli side that Hamas is not returning the bodies of dead hostages that they are supposed to. There are 19 hostages left to be returned. But of course, part of that ceasefire deal is that Palestinians will receive 15 bodies for every single Israeli return. And so there are trucks, there's satellite images, and we have trucks of dead bodies, people's relatives in refrigerated trucks, as well as satellite images of aid that's not being allowed to enter Gaza. So this ceasefire agreement, it's not as solid as we would hope. It's definitely not as solid as US President Donald Trump is positing, but a lot of people, particularly countries like France, Egypt and Qatar, are hoping that enough will be done to make sure that the war is actually over.
And what are you hearing from those other countries and international agencies, particularly when you talk about the return of bodies? Hamas says it needs special equipment. It's difficult to get those bodies from the rubble. Are they getting any aid, and is Israel understanding that excuse?
Well, there's definitely different information coming out from the hostages' families as well as from the Israeli government. Now, when it comes to the key nations involved, a spokesman from Egypt, who's part of the delegation, said that Hamas is doing all that they can. Even US President Donald Trump has essentially said that he believes that they're doing all that they can, that it is a gruesome task ahead. So there seems to be some belief coming from the mediators and the other countries that Hamas is doing all that is possible. Now, if we go to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, he does not believe this, and he also says that they will not rest and they will not compromise until every single body is returned to Israeli custody. Now, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu is facing his own fire domestically. He has a corruption case that he was supposed to take the stand for, but he said that he was too ill. He had a bronchitis, I believe they said it was, so he did not take the stand on his corruption case. And he's also seen a slight boost in popularity since this ceasefire deal came into place. And so his party is planning to do elections, internal elections in his Likud party in November 25th of this year. So his posture is slightly different from that of the families of the hostages who have been releasing statements. The posture of other world leaders is also different. Of course, you know, it is Hamas, so there's not a lot of goodwill here. But it does seem, as we said before, there are reportedly thousands of bodies buried under that rubble, and so to find 19 Israeli citizens in that area is going to be very difficult.
Oladesua Giwa Osage, thank you so much for being on ground for us in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, and bringing us the latest on this ceasefire deal. We do appreciate you, and do stay safe. Adesua.